Hi there, I am multi to TikTok. Now, if you look into my channel, you will see there's a Rebel Moon stream with other topics. So, yeah, I decided I would clip this into this current video to make one big video covering both Rebel Moon from Zack Snyder. Now, I'm blunt and honest. If you like Zack Snyder, you will hate this video. That's the warning.
Time as I'm trying to pull up like the cast. There's a lot of potential with this flick, and I wanted to like this. I really did, as I generally do with most of Zack Snyder's films. But I sadly do not like it, like most of Zack Snyder's films. It's not a good thing. It's bad because you can tell he's got a passion for film, and he does make some really iconic shots. But sadly, in like these last two movies, he's wanted to use what is it, Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon. He's wanted to use these special lenses that are an extremely narrow depth of focus. It's everything in the back just gets so blurred and it's so odd. Like it looks as if like you're looking through the eyes of like a drunk character, but that's what he wants for all of this. And he's chosen this, and he knew that any DP that he brought on board would fight him on this because it's just stupid to make an entire movie that way. So he decided to DP them himself. It is really bad. This guy loves to wear a ton of hats. When he's just wearing one like director, it's great. Like I really do like 300. I really do like his remake of Dawn of the Dead. But when he starts wearing more hats, like starts being the writer on it, he's taking on too much. And I think like his vision gets muddied and gets lost. I don't think he did himself a service or anybody else a service with this whole thing. I kind of bought into the hype. Like it could be cool to see a rated R Star Wars. Like hell yeah, I'm down for that. And Star Wars isn't exactly like novel. It is very derivative. There's a lot of movies that it directly borrows from and essentially remakes. But it does it in a really fun way, and it doesn't just tell you. It's not just weird drops of like you need to know this information. It's not going to be subtle or anything like that. It's going to be an exposition dump, and you're going to have to learn this for each character. Like I'm not the first one to point this out, but in A New Hope, it's Owen, it's Uncle Owen, and I can't remember the aunt's name now, but they're talking about how Luke doesn't want to be there. And then there's the iconic shot of him like longing, looking out over the two sons of Tatooine. It doesn't really make sense the way that they're doing it here. Instead of kind of showing something, everything you learn about every one of these characters is just dropped in exposition, and it really feels like it's an MMO that's going to these side quest missions, and the reward of each one of these side quests is you now have a new member of your party. It sucks. There's a potential for something really cool here. And I don't know if it's just this new trend that everyone's doing, like they just did it with Ridley Scott's film Napoleon, where they're releasing this lesser version of it, and then maybe the actual film makes sense when you see the director's cut or whatever they're going to call it. I don't know what Apple's calling the 4-hour cut of Napoleon, but maybe that actually had like a through line, and it wasn't just a collection of scenes that kind of put together. That's what this one is as well. And maybe the director's cut is going to actually like glue these together, and it's not just a whole bunch of slow mo shots and then exposition dump. But that's what I feel like we got here. I don't know. I really wanted to like this, but sadly, there's not much to like. I kind of liked the world. It seemed like it was, well worn. It was lived in. It's not just, I gotta be honest. I liked the world that we were introduced here way more than like the Ahsoka show. Like, I really didn't like that world that we started off in. When they get to that new world with the weird crab things, like, okay, that's cool. Like, that's what I want to see out of sci-fi. I kind of feel like that was this, except for every single thing about this world seems like it's a retread and not a good version of it. Like we get the Mos Eisley Cantina. Like every day we get like every single thing about Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars and it's not done as well. I do understand that this was like Snyder's pitch to them a long time ago and they rejected it. Somehow Netflix took it up. I believe this was before Force Awakens. So, it does have kind of that Star Wars retread thing. Maybe that could work. But sadly, this also was so long of a movie that they decided to break it into part two. Like this is supposed to be a 3-part series, but this movie is a 2-part thing. So it's following down like the Deathly Hollows, the Mockingjay part 1 and 2 thing, where they're now just splitting a movie in half. And that could be cool. I really liked Across the Spider-Verse. That's again like kind of a movie split in half, but they did it in a way that it still feels like you get that entire journey, you still get that story. Yeah, it's a cliffhanger ending, but it feels like it's a complete movie. I don't feel like that is here. Like, I don't know. Just, I don't feel like we got to know any character. I don't know any motivation. Yeah, a couple people said a few things, but there's a bunch of questions, and I don't know if I care to have them answered, is where I'm left with this. But yeah, that's kind of my experience with it. Hope I left you guys some room to crap on this.
Can I go?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so first of all, for the Napoleon, the longer version, I have the name. It's Ridley Scott. Sorry, I wanted to do a pun.
Nice.
All right, so first of all, I want to talk a bit about Zack Snyder, because I do not like him as a director. I think he is very bad. I think he really lacks media literacy. Like, he adapted 300, he adapted Watchmen.
But there's some cool shots in those films.
Yeah, but so what? If you have cool shots, but don't say anything, they don't, tell a story. They're just there to look cool. When he did Watchmen, he said in an interview, word for word, I don't like comic books, except I read Watchmen, and it had sex and violence, and that was more my jam.
Yeah, he didn't understand it though.
No, he didn't. He didn't understand it, and he didn't understand 300 either, because that's supposed to be like a all about fascism. And he took that and went, "Look at how cool they look." So it gets me mad a little bit about everything. And as far as Rebel Moon goes, so the first thing that I really, really need to talk about this piece of shit of a movie that I hated so much is the fact that it plagiarizes every single thing. Like,
Fair enough, but I mean, like, if you're gonna go with like the original Star Wars, like it also did, but it did it kind of in a new way, where I don't feel like he's doing it here.
no, like, the scene when, like, I forget the name of the bad guy. I'll call him Space Nazi number one. So, Space Nazi number one goes on the farming planet, and then he starts talking to the chief of the planet, and the chief tells his merry band of farmers, "Hey, don't tell the Nazi that we have food here, or he's going to take it all." And then the Nazi, starts trying to become his friend and manipulate him. That is exactly the opening sequence from Inglourious Bastards, like word for word.
But a lesser version.
Yeah,
It was a good version, and it had tension in not in Snyder's version though. Like that all just gets taken out of it.
Yeah.
Yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, and also there's the main character's backstory. That's basically a full-on plagiarism of the flashback scene with Gamora from Infinity War. It's the exact same thing. The bad guy kills her parents and then takes her and trains her. And then she rebels against him. It's exactly the backstory of Gamora from Infinity War.
In all due fairness, I think he wrote this treatment before that was popularized, but still, it seems like you might adjust it or do it a different way.
Yeah, and of course, like there's the goddamn scene with the hippogriff. Like that scene is full on a plagiarism of the hippogriff scene from.
No, that side quest was perfect. It had to be done.
No, it didn't. None of them had to be done. Like, it's the same design as a hippogriff, but with black feathers. He bows before the creature to get it to calm down, and then he rides it. It's like plagiarism, almost like shot for shot. And that got me so pissed. And it's not only that. I think that Zack Snyder is about as media literate and as mature as a 16-year-old who just discovered the R-rated movies. Because what he does here is that he takes Star Wars and he's like, "Hey, what if we had rape? What if we put rape in Star Wars? What if the bad guys all try to rape the main character?" Because he thinks it's edgy and mature when it's childish and immature instead. And that got me real mad because, like it's a sci-fi fantasy that he tries to make his kind of Star Wars. But it's bad guys versus good guys. It's that black and white, and he tries to insert rape and sexual violence into the whole thing. And to me, that is very insulting, and he cannot deal with that nuanced of a topic. And every time it happens, I just thought it was incredibly offensive and incredibly stupid and immature and very mean-spirited. So yes, there's that, and as far as the characters go, they are boring as shit. They don't have any personality or agency. Like, come on, like the girl who cuts up a spider or a spider woman, having a katana doesn't give you a personality. That is not a personality.
They're glowing katanas though.
Yes.
I don't know. Like I'd have to think like that is one of the side characters that is somewhat the most fleshed out. Like at least that's one of them that I know a bit about her story. Where like I don't know anything else about any of them, and you don't find out anything until the very end, where they're all like, in a line. "Oh, you're this prince. And like he goes through and tells each one of their backstories.
But they don't matter.
I don't know.
They don't matter. Like you go to their planet, and you talked about the world building. How you felt it was lived in. I don't think it is. I think each of these friggin' planets just exists.
I mean, like the farm at the beginning.
Yeah, but
like
the rest
that
of them
felt like a farm, I guess. But you're right. Not every world was fleshed out.
They exist just to have a background for a fight, and that is it. That is their only reason to exist.
I agree.
And you can almost thank you, and you can almost see the edge of the green screen. It's so badly done. Like the effects are shit. They the characters look cut out. They never feel like they're part of the world. They just feel like they feel like they're Mortal Kombat characters in front of a backdrop. And even then, Mortal Kombat does it better. So
yeah. I don't know. There's some aspects that are kind of cool. Like when you mentioned the effects, like I like the effect of the bullets in these guns. Like it's It's not exactly a laser. It's not exactly a bullet, but there's like some molten metal or something after. I thought some of the effects were like okay, but then you go to like the flaming katanas, and it's like we've seen that so many times.
Yeah,
Like why
it's
do?
called a lightsaber. Uh,
Yeah,
And he has his cast, right? He's got like a great cast, Sophia Boutella, Jamon Hunsu, Charlie Hunnam, but they are so undeveloped, so uninteresting that they could be replaced with cardboard cutouts of themselves that the movies would be the same. The movie would be the exact same. It would not change a friggin' thing. And I'm like, okay, at least they're going to try to develop the main character a little bit, right? But they don't. She is written exactly like any female character in a bad action movie, where she doesn't have any personality traits. She just, she is just a cold woman, and she is driven only by revenge. And the only womanly thing she has is that she has tits, and that is it. Like, she is not characterized as a woman; she is characterized as a person who wants revenge. And I think
well,
it's very much possible to have a good female protagonist that is not only a cold bitch who just wants violence.
but she's also the idea person because Titus, the former general, he didn't even think about getting revenge until she mentioned, well, what about revenge? And then that got him out of his drunken stupor, and he's willing to go with them. I don't know. It's just weird. Like, you're right. She's focused on revenge.
Yeah.
Why did that never occur to like the general who got like his whole army, slaughtered, and he feels remorse for it, but not revenge? He just it never occurred to him.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it is. And also, again, like, even the costume design, right? They are Nazis. These are Nazi uniforms.
Huh. I didn't make any connections till you just mentioned it. Wow.
They really are. Like, it could have been designed by Hugo Boss himself back in the 40s. It's exactly the same look as a SS uniform, and that got me. Like, it's so obvious from the get go. You don't need to push it, but with that damn costume design.
Well, sadly, Star Wars got that too. Like George Lucas kind of got that whole like, you're making this too close to the Nazis. He didn't go nearly as far as Snyder. Like, I don't know. It's just interesting that like, something where it was much more subtle, but they did have uniforms and there was like this empire thing. I don't know. It feels like, maybe he really isn't good at doing anything he hasn't seen before, but maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe, I don't know, because the thing with Rebel Moon is that it lacks any kind of subtlety. Like, and Zack Snyder is the least subtle director working right now. He does things because he thinks they look cool, and that is it. He has these extremely cool shots in all of his movies, but they don't tell a story. They are just there to look cool. They don't mean anything. And to me, that is not a director. That is not what the director does. I think he's a terrible director as far as it goes. I think he's great at composing an image. I think he's very good at that. And I think he's got a very strong sense of aesthetic. But as far as directing goes, he is probably my least favorite director working right now.
Wow.
And,
that's amazing. I agree with so much with what you said. Do you want to add more?
Yeah, I mean, I just have like one. So two more things to say. Actually, no, three things. So as far as the story of the movie goes, it's boring as shit. It's just it's Star Wars without the personality. And the way it's structured exactly like a video game, right? So you go on that new planet, which is the new level. You have a fight. You recruit a new party member in RPG, and then you move on to the next level. And these action sequences that show off the characters, the new member of the groups, they're not even useful because they don't fight that much after. They're just there to make them look cool, but then they don't do anything with them after. And you know what? I think this is also extremely badly written. So I'm going to give you an example of that with the opening narration, right? It's 90 seconds. I timed it. And in 90 seconds, the narration contradicts itself so much. I have no idea what this stupid-ass world is.
But it was Sir Anthony Hopkins. Like,
I don't
how
care.
could it contradict itself?
Listen, so you have there's this mother world that is been governed by a royal family for years and years and years, and then they drained all of the resources from their planet, and so they decide to go invade the other planets to get their resources. And here's where, so far so good, right? But then that's when the writing starts getting a lot iffy because first of all, at some point, the king and queen die. They get killed by a nameless assassin, and only after they die is there a rebellion that takes place. Like, since when do you start a rebellion after the dictators have died? So that's my first point.
Well, if they were the good dictators, I don't know.
And also, so there's the king and queen of this galaxy, I suppose, but then it says that it's a rebellion. So a rebellion implies that you rebel against the authority, something that is placed there, right? But the way the narration is written, it says that the mother world invades planets without their consent. But if they are, the king and queen of these planets also, it wouldn't be an invasion. They could just go, "Hey, we're coming to take your shit. Prepare dinner," But then they have to rebel. So, but it wouldn't be a rebellion if, if they were. How do I say this? God damn it! It's not a rebellion if the king and queen are invading and are not, the ruler of this planet. It would be a retaliation. It would be a war, not a rebellion. Words are important, and because of his choice of words, Zack Snyder doesn't know if this galaxy is governed or not by the king and queen. It's stupid as shit. And that's in 90 seconds. In 90 seconds of narration, you don't know if this is a resource war or if it's a rebellion against an already existing empire. So yeah, my last thoughts on this stupid ass movie is that I sincerely hope that it gets forgotten in the depths of an abandoned Netflix server. There you go. That's my thoughts on Rebel Moon.
I like
The
his
Space
speech.
Coliseum, though.
I got to say, as the first side note, am I crazy to think and say that it doesn't feel like Star Wars at all?
Well, I don't know. It depends. It's stealing from the same source material that Star Wars was, so it does have that built into it. But I don't know. Kind of laser guns and space swords, wizards.
Yeah, I guess.
Sure, but,
I guess.
Star Wars was at least it had a sense of fun, a sense of adventure. It had characters, it had discovery. But this is it's so bland. It's so
Agreed.
bland.
But you had Charlie Hunnam. He was wearing a space tank top. Come on.
So here's my side note number 2, and this is a special one. I lost 5 or 10 minutes in the first act since I went to wash my teeth. Usually I don't do that in movies, but this one, it took forever. So I was like, I will go wash my teeth and come back. And when I came back, I felt like I missed nothing at all. So I guess that 5 to 10 minute wasn't important. That's amazing. So now let's go into my issues with this masterpiece. First issue, too many characters. And on top of that, characters were forgettable. This is very fun when the focus of your story is forgettable.
What? You don't remember Jimmy, the robot who shows up for a minute and then is just gone for like 2 hours?
I can't remember a single name. And
Cora's the name of the main woman, the main character. That's the only thing that I remember.
Well, that's one of her names, but do you remember her other name? I don't.
I don't.
Sophia Butella.
Next point, pacing. Everything takes forever. Telling instead of showing. That goes back to exposition dump, like what you mentioned. Cannot aim. So I'm the kind of person that find it challenging to watch like firefights and that kind of stuff, because I will point that out if I feel like these people should aim a little bit better, or like some of the sides should suffer loss. But here it just feels like, oh, only specific people get it, or they just don't get it at all, and it's just flashy stuff because we need flashy stuff in a movie.
I mean, the main characters are protected by plot armor.
Yeah. Speaking of plot armor, that's my next issue. 2,000 plot armor on the officer during the war. I can't even remember her name, but I remember that sequence where everyone dies, she stands still, then walk on the battlefield while not getting injured or deleted. Everyone else dies though. So amazing plot armor there. Overuse of useless, pointless slow motion. Why?
Yes, I agree.
Why?
Yes, I agree. It's an aesthetic, and that's cool, but it needs to have a point. Like at some point, I remember there's a shot where it's a slow mo shot of a girl falling in the dirt, and it has no reason to be there. No reason. Maybe he thought the particles of the dirt flying were pretty in slow mo. Yeah, but no reason to be there.
Yeah. So next up would be pacing again. We are back at it. The movie takes forever with no valid reason. This is
at certain times, and then it just goes way too fast at other times. Like the pacing is all over the place on this. And I don't know if that's the difference between the two cuts. I don't know. Maybe they can't show some of the art stuff.
Maybe, or maybe they just lost the footage. I don't know. Things happen, you know. So there's still a few things that I enjoyed. So here they are. The lore was decent. It wasn't impressive. It's just like, oh, it's there. It's part of the universe. It's part of the movie. The villain, even if they are forgettable and kind of bad, they are entertaining to watch. So that's one thing. So you're like, oh, they're on screen, so something will happen, I guess. The actors did their job. So yeah, like the music.
That's not really a compliment, is it? Like, they showed up on set that day.
Well, the actor showed up, so
They were there. It's not really a compliment. It's just they stood there while Zack Snyder yelled action.
I like the music, and when it was action, I was entertained. It wasn't amazing action. It wasn't groundbreaking, but I was
So
entertained.
you like slow-mo action, do you?
A little bit, I guess. But as I said, I mentioned it, too many slow-mo. So I was entertained because there were stuff on the screen. But again, that's it. This movie feels shallow. This movie feels forgettable. It's better than any of the sequel trilogy for sure, but the bar is
No, it
so
is
low.
not.
I don't know about that, man. Like, there was potential with Force Awakens. I don't see the potential in this. Like, do you have any hope? Like, well, I mean, like, yeah, this was retread, but it could go. I don't know. I felt like at the end of Force Awakens, I had some potential. They did not pay it off at all, but I don't feel that potential here. And maybe it's because it's half a movie, but
Maybe.
Also, Rich, with the thing. So I have a theory. All right, I cannot prove that theory, but since the Snyder Cut came out, I feel like now every future Zack Snyder movie is going to be butchered, either by him or a studio, and then they're going to be like, oh, but he's going to release his version later. Just to
that's what it seems like.
Just to squeeze a little more time and money out of his fans.
Which is sad because supposedly they had to break this in two because when they were doing it, they realized that the world building really suffered in their initial thing. It just kind of went from character to character, and there was no world building. So they really had to flesh that out and make it 2 movies. So did you feel like there were really good worlds in this? I got to be honest. That first village, yeah, I mean, like they're kind of stupid. They've got really fertile land, but they choose not to do anything with it. But I kind of felt like that was like a lived-in place, maybe. The cantina, it did not seem like a great world. It didn't seem like it holds up to like the Mos Eisley cantina at all. And every other one of those worlds, like I don't feel like we had any time with them, but every one of them I seem to have issues with. It didn't feel like a legit place. I don't feel like we got world.
Well, no, because they exist to be backdrop for action sequences. That's the only reason they are there, just to look cool in the background while people fight in the foreground.
Yeah, well said. So that's it for my part, and now I will read out what Cole has told me in DMs because Cole wasn't able to make it, and it was like, oh, I will still give you my thoughts. So the biggest piece of shit he has ever seen. Not as garbage as Army of the Dead, but
Okay,
it's
so he
trash.
hasn't seen Sucker Punch then?
Sucker Punch is better. Not by far, but it's better.
It's
I
prettier.
don't know. I think he has, like, Cole sees a lot of movies. Like, maybe not as much as Alex, but he sees a lot of movies.
It's part of my job, right? To watch movies,
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, he says it's trash in almost every way. Zack Snyder has officially solidified himself as one of the worst blockbuster director in Hollywood, despite having a decent start with 3 solid movies, similar to Mr. Night Shyamalan. He clearly learned nothing from his past mistakes. Thank you, Alex. And as the ego of the size of Dwayne Johnson's. This is Cole. Cole, I miss you. I hate to break it to him, but I don't think Disney and Warner Bros. Rejected your ideas because it was too edgy for Star Wars and other IPs. Rather, it was because these ideas are about as creative and intelligent as those autistic macaroni and glue art project you make in preschool. Okay.
Okay, but it was based on better macaroni glue art. Okay, so
So the acting and characters all suck, and especially Ray Fisher, whose performance was the worst thing I've ever seen, on par with his character and acting from Ooh Bowls in the
wow,
name
he's
of
really
the King.
he's calling out Darian Bloodaxe. Wow, I was not familiar with who Ray Fisher was. I had to look it up really quick. That was the brother of the Rebellion.
Oh,
Fair enough.
really? He was in the movie?
I don't remember seeing Ray Fisher in this thing at all. And I watched it like 3 or 4 days ago, something like that.
Me too. I've seen it like Thursday. This is disastrous. He clearly gave him this minor role to help pay for his DoorDash and avoid being homeless after he effed his own career up with false accusation, being a garbage person and a crybaby online to everyone, and being a garbage actor. He is now trying to say he won't be in as much after this because he chooses his role selectively. Which is just another word for saying my career is over and I'm going back to Broadway and crap made for TV shows on dead streaming services. So I'm saying it as a shield, making it seem like it was my decision. So this is part 1 of 3. You're amazing, Cole. Like, oh, I see the bulk of it now. It started off really strong with part number 2 out of 3.
No, it's going to go part 1, part 2. Like it is going to be 3 parts, but each part may have multiple parts. So there's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what happens.
Yeah, you're gonna have part 1, and then part 1 the Snyder Cut, and then part 2, and then part 2 the Snyder Cut.
I think there's going to be even more if you're counting like individual Snyder Cut and original. Like, so this is part 2, but
5-hour
still
cut,
part
bro.
1.
The 5-hour cut where everything is slow mo, so the movie pretended as substance.
So Snyder said that Snyder said himself that his own cut of Rebel Moon is going to be 1 hour longer. So it's going to be this thing's going to be 3 hours long. and it's gonna have sex and violence, like more sex and more violence.
Wow.
And that's it. That is what he said, word for word. So what he means.
So it's just the tentacle scene, like extended, and that's it.
I mean, all he has to offer as a director is sex and violence. That is what he is saying. He has nothing more to offer. No characters, no story, nothing to say. Just sex and violence.
I mean,
This
maybe
is
it's
how
gonna
we do.
fill some of those gaps, and maybe there's going to be some explanation. And I'm sure, like those fight scenes, there, she has an axe and she's going against people. It does some weird cuts. Maybe that's going to be more bloody, but I don't know. Do you think that the slow mo is used to fill out those scenes, or is it just extra on top of the slow mo that's already in those fight scenes? I'm not sure what to expect.
It's to pretend there's something going on that is worth taking your time to watch and see. It's just to say, oh, instead of having a 2-hour movie, let's make it 2.5 hours. I think that's my guess. Anyhow, cool. Part number 2 out of 3. The cinematography, visual direction, and lighting are all garbage and feel unfinished or like a rough copy of footage from a backup camera, and especially with how ugly the style of it is. I 100% agree.
It's ugly inside and out.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't mark it down because I feel like I point out enough issue there, but he's named right on that. I didn't want to trash the movie too much on that aspect, but yeah, at least
I want to send me the text. I'll do it. Send me what he wrote.
but at least there are no dead pixels this time. Oh, good job. Some will say there are good shots and cinematography in it, but those people clearly don't understand how it works. The decent looking moment of it, and with certain shots, which are a few and far between, aren't actually good visual, cinematography, direction, lighting, or anything of the sorts. That's a visual effect or just basic scenery, which looks ugly at many other points, but also has nothing to do with any filmmaking aspect he did. And the B, it's just a guarantee with that what you will get when you have a ginormous budget to work with, Zack Snyder does. There's no film in history that tries this type of genre of film and works with this type of budget that doesn't at least accomplish that in scenes, because it's a given by just having money and resources. Even the Star Wars sequel and effing God of Egypt 2016 accomplished it. In fact, compared to every other in those areas, this is some of the worst I've seen. So Cole, you are a word of wisdom. Anything else to add before we tackle Cole's last comment about this masterpiece called Rebel Moon?
Yeah, I guess so. I was just looking at what year Snyder had first kind of conceived of this and brought it to Disney, and that was like 2012. So this would have been, like before everything was relaunched, and it would have been in that time of, like a strong female protagonist. So, it may be suffering from some of the, this is really old hat and really well-tread ground based off of that it's, from like 11 years ago, but still, it just borrows too heavily from a whole bunch of different movies.
How is this thing 11 years in the making? It feels like it was like an afterthought when he was having it in his lunch.
Yeah.
How is this 11 years in the making?
I don't see it. Like, right now, it's been like 5 months. I'm working on a novel I write, and the story is like 10,000 better than something you worked on for like 11 years. I know it's hard to compare a novel to a movie, but there's still a story, Anyhow, yeah, that's Snyder. Happy New Year, everyone. Snyder flops. So, Cole, third part. There's no choreography in the acting or action in any scenes or any basic understanding of the pacing and timing with things that any filmmaker should know. The story and structure with each character makes no sense. I agree 100%. Takes forever where it feels like it will give you Alzheimer. Hell yeah, like dementia, guys, dementia. And it's done in a way that a 6-year-old in 2nd grade would do when writing a short story in class and trying to give each character backstory. Well, Cole, you are insulting to all these 6-year-olds because I can bet they can do better. My imaginary 8-year-old son can come up with something better than this. No doubt about it. This is me adding something. The writing sucks, and it feels like it's artificial intelligence talking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The music is unbearable. Oh, this I disagree, Cole. That's the first thing I disagree with you. I like the music.
I don't know, man. They did some weird things. Like all of a sudden, where what's her name, Nemesis, the one with the lightsabers. All of a sudden, she's about to fight the spider thing, and all of a sudden, they start doing like some weird Asian music going on in the background. I don't know. I kind of see what Cole's saying. Hey, listen back to it, man. Like it sounds weird. Like I don't know. This is a different world or whatever. But he's going that route with it.
Okay, here's the thing, right? That spider scene. I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
I remember that. I remember that she was fighting the spider thing to save a kid, right?
Yes, the spider lady apparently lost her kid, so it decided to steal a kid.
Yeah, but what happened? What happened to the kid?
So Gunner, the farm guy who has no experience, grabbed her and saved her, and then she went back to her parents.
Okay, cool. Because I remember thinking, wasn't there a kid there?
Yes,
yeah,
there was
but
a
then
kid there.
Maybe I blacked out during.
But then you find out her backstory, and her backstory, Nemesis, or apparently Duna Bay is also her name. Yeah, it's weird, but her character's backstory is also she lost her kids, so now she's on this revenge mission, which is the
Right.
exact same thing the Spider was doing. I don't understand. Like, I don't know. It feels like he couldn't come up with like additional plot points, so it's just okay. Same exact
Well,
plot.
by
For
the
this
way,
one. Same thing for
what's
this.
the point at the end? You know, when they fake kill the Nazi and then 5 seconds later he's back.
So that's what I was wondering. Did they actually kill him? Because he looks awfully dead on that rock, and then it
No,
shows that the daughter, the princess or whatever, can bring things back to life, and then it kind of looks like that room that they're in. I don't know. If you play like D&D, it kind of looks necromancy esque. So is
Maybe.
it a Nazi necromancy cult that can bring people back from the dead, and then somehow has like virtual space that they can meet the big baddie in? Like I don't know. It's very unclear, and I don't know that I care to find out.
No, I mean, and if you can bring things back to life, she should bring back Zack Snyder's career back to life.
That might be beyond her powers. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Cole. That's beyond their powers, man.
Okay, but why did the robot have antlers at the end?
It's a metaphor for nature.
Oh,
No,
really?
I get it. Just his metaphors are so subtle, you know.
Or maybe Zack Snyder saw Midsommar and then he decided to do the same shit with the robots.
Since you mentioned Midsommar before I finish Cole's comment, I'm curious to hear your opinion about it. I've seen it. We covered it, Cole and I. So what did you think of Midsommar?
Oh, I love it. I think it's great. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ari Aster. This year, Boys Afraid was in my top 10 of the best movies of the year. I love Midsommar. I think it's extremely smart. I think it's very unsettling, and I think it's the saddest romantic comedy of all time.
That's good. I think you will get along very well with Cole. I wasn't as eager. I wasn't as excited as him to see it. I enjoyed it based on what I remember. That was a good movie, but not masterpiece level for me. But anyhow, that was an enjoyable movie nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to rewatch it for us to have a full-on discussion, and take notes. But it's a movie that I absolutely adore, and I think that Ari Aster is one of the best directors working today, compared to Mr. Snyder.
So, moving on with the second half of the third part of Cole's comment. The editing is painful. There's nothing good to this. It's all trash. The only stuff that's half decent is some of the visual effect, but again, it sucks at other points. If this even gets an Oscar nomination for visual effect, and over films such as Guardian of the Galaxy 3, Godzilla's -1, Society of the Snow, then I'm going to lose my crap.
Godzilla -1 is amazing. It's a masterpiece.
Overall, this film should have been aborted, and Netflix are idiots for putting their trust into Zack Snyder. Not only is this a critical and audience and objectively made failure, but just like Army of the Dead and Zack Snyder Justice League, it's also a financial and rating failure, as it got very low watches on Netflix, just like his other compared to similar releases in the year, and lost to smaller movies. I'm not surprised, to be honest. I'm not. It was still fairly high in the overall rating, but considering all of the many movies above it for 2023 releases are 50 times smaller in budget, advertising, promotion, it's pathetic. A film like this should have guaranteed to get #1 of 2023 or even top 3, but it wasn't even close to it. Nor was it even #1 of the actual week it released in. It was like #6, then fell out of the top 10 the week after. This is the more equivalent of if the dude who made that space Nazi film, Iron Sky, and Bowl collaborated on a film together. F this piece of crap. And this was Cole.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Cole.
I
Even if
would like to hug him. I would like to hug him.
me
That is
too.
all.
Even if he's not there with us for now, he still is in spirit. With that being said, I don't have much more to say about this movie. I will ask the both of you if any of you would like to add more to what was already told.
I think I'm done.
I think Travis Mitchell put way more thought into that
Yeah.
comment than Zack Snyder did over the significance of it. When they asked the filmmaker at the end, there were a couple people who got to kind of interview him about this project. He said that actually it was because of the robots getting back to nature, and it decided to go hunting and fishing. So that's why it was wearing antlers. It's like,
Wow.
what? Okay. It doesn't appear like he did much. He just, kind of like Alex was mentioning earlier, he has certain visual images or something that mean way more to him than the story. And, that is kind of what I think of when I think of his filmography. It's like, yeah, there's some, that there's a couple images in 300 that are very iconic that really kind of stand out. There's a couple in Sucker Punch, but that's all I remember. I don't remember a good movie. I don't remember, him truly having a grasp of storytelling or telling something new or possibly in a different way. It's just, okay, there's a couple of good visuals.
Yeah, I mean, the movie I like more from him is 300, his remake of Dawn of the Dead, and that's because it was adapted.
I really like that one.
Yeah, I think it's because it's based on James Gunn's screenplay. And James Gunn is a better writer than Snyder is a director.
For sure.
But yeah, he didn't understand the screenplay either because just a little sidetrack. Remember in the opening scene of Dawn of the Dead when she passes by a bus and there's a woman being attacked by zombies and she kind of ignores it? You remember that? Well, that was supposed in the script. It's supposed to imply a sexual assault. Like it's
Oh,
supposed to.
wow.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Really?
Zack Snyder didn't get that at all.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, he
This
doesn't.
showed
Yeah.
the brain capacity of the director.
No, because he doesn't understand the shit that he reads.
yeah. I mean, if you look at Watchmen, like he clearly did not understand like the significance of like anything in
Oh,
that story.
yeah.
Visually, he made it look a lot like the panels in the comic, which is great. But I really don't think that he understood a damn thing about that, and his changes to the end just completely like I don't know, hammer that home that he really doesn't have an
I
understanding.
have a theory about the ending of the Watchmen versus in the movie versus the one in the book. I don't think I'm right because I don't think Zack Snyder really put that much thought into it. But so in the book, it ends with them, summoning like an alien creature, and then America stops war with Russia to face it, right? And I think that was sort of Alan Moore saying that the enemy is always going to be the outsider for the U.S. It's always going to be they're never going to look at themselves when they are the problem. They're always going to look towards other parts of the world, and in that case, other worlds to fight instead of doing the introspection that is needed. And in Snyder's version, it's Dr. Manhattan that takes the blame for everything. And when you think about it, Dr. Manhattan represents American values, right? So the power of the atom, the power of the military, and all of that. So if I'm right, I think it means that the U.S. has turned against its own values and is going to get better by blaming Dr. Manhattan for the problems. But that is just my interpretation, and I don't think that Zack Snyder thought about it this far and this much.
I sadly don't think he put that much thought into it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really did, and he painstakingly chose the ending he did. But I just think he misinterpreted it. But perhaps that's me. Much like the scene that you're talking about at the opening of Dawn of the Dead, and it seems like that every one of his adaptations has been kind of plagued with that same accusation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He doesn't understand what he adapts.
A Snyder fan just left the chat.
Sorry.
Anyhow,
I mean, they look pretty though.
I will start by saying Cole's grade for this movie out of 10 was a juicy 0.
Yeah, I mean,
He gave 0 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree.
So what about you, Alex? What would be your grade out of 10?
Yeah, Poland 0 as well. Honestly, I think this is the worst movie I've ever seen.
Oh my! Have you
yeah,
seen
and
a cocaine beer?
No, but
Cocaine Bear
That's
is
fine.
decent.
Oh, yeah,
okay?
yeah,
I would
no,
watch
it's
Cocaine Bear
awful.
any day over this.
right, I misunderstood what you said. And yeah, I saw Cocaine Bear. I think it's very badly directed, but I think it has some funny moments.
Okay.
And at least it wasn't insulting to my intelligence.
Ghostbuster 2016 is also kind of worse than that, I believe.
No, I disagree. I think it was, I think it was a bit too much. I get what they were going for. And I do think that it has a lot of talented people there, but I think it's the way the director made it that didn't work. With the writing. That's just me.
Okay. Well, what would be your grade out of 10? Great.
I'm going to be giving it a little bit higher than both Cole and Alex did, but not a ton higher. I'm really in no, I don't know, I guess hurry to see the Snyder cut of this. I'm really not looking forward to it. But I do kind of want to know, does that actually explain it, or is it just a worse version of this that's longer?
It'll be a worse version.
That's what I'm wondering. Because, I've seen a whole lot of video essays, explaining how the Snyder Cut really is superior in, Justice League, and how every part about it, they just didn't understand it. And, maybe, to me, it still seems like a really boring movie that's not what I want out of a Justice League. But fair enough.
Don't get me started on that one.
We will eventually cover these.
Okay,
Cool.
yeah.
Cool. I am.
With this, I don't know, there's elements of it that could be cool, but I think the way that he handled each one of them, it makes it seem like a really shitty video game where you're just gaining members of this party, and then all of a sudden you're at the climax, but there was no build up. You're not really getting anything. Maybe that's because they cut this movie in half. But what they said that they were gaining out of cutting it in half was they were actually going to be able to do some world building, and I don't feel like they did it here. So I don't know. I feel like I know none of the characters, even though they gave me the exposition dump on each one. And then when that wasn't quite enough, at the end, the bad guy literally lines them all up and gives you another exposition dump so that you get to really know these characters.
But I still don't know them.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's a failure, but there's some kind of, I don't know if I'd say iconic because they do seem borrowed, but it seems like there's some nuggets of good ideas here and some moments where things kind of shine, but it's so brief. And the overall product that I'm left with is something that I don't care to watch the next one. I really don't care, but I see what he's trying to do. There is kind of a mystery. Is the blonde chick that is talking to the robot, is she, the princess or whatever, did she actually die? Is she possibly involved with bringing people back to the dead with the space Nazis? Do I care? No. So I don't know. There are some things that they tried to do to leave cliffhangers, and they want people to think about theories, but I don't know. I think doing that at the expense of actually telling a story is horrible. And I think every one of these that has, been kind of half of a two-part thing, they at least come up with a way to make each movie its own thing. Supposedly Kill Bill was the same. When Tarantino came with the script, they're like, this is way too long, you need to cut it in half. I love Kill Bill 1 and 2. They are completely different, and they are so, I don't know, they are so much different. The score isn't the only thing that really changes them, but it feels like they're two complete movies, where this, I don't know how the next one, maybe it will feel like a complete movie. This doesn't to me. It just feels like I'm on a whole bunch of side quests, and then and they're going painstakingly slow, and then really fast we ramp up the end out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I don't like this movie at all, and I'm not looking forward to seeing the next one. But there's some things that were done kind of cool, so I think I give it a 3. But yeah, that's with
You are
reluctance.
generous. You are a generous man.
I gave this movie a 3.5 out of 10, and for me it's really low. Like for me, like since it's your first time on the panel,
Here's what I remember from Rebel Moon, almost a year after I've seen the movie. That first part was forgettable, trash, and a waste of time. I said it. If you like Zack Snyder, you will hate this video. Now, we did a stream and we talked about Rebel Moon Part 1 for about 50 minutes. We were a panel of 3 people, and among us, nobody enjoyed that shit. I'm sure some people did like that movie. I'm really bad at pointing out stuff. Oh, there we go. I did it. I did it. But yeah, maybe he has his audience. I don't know, or his very small audience are really loud and noisy, and that's why we think he has a fan base. I really don't know. I I don't know. Um, I think the only enjoyable Zack Snyder movie I've seen was Man of Steel. I've heard good things about 300. I did not see. Actually, I also have seen Watchmen, and I think I enjoyed it back then, but it's a long time ago. And based on what I've heard, it's not even that great if you read the source of material. So I don't know, but yeah, I think I enjoyed Watchmen, but I've seen that thing a long time ago. And maybe I enjoyed it for stupid reason. I don't know. I know I enjoyed Man of Steel each time I did see it. I think I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times. I'm looking forward to rewatch Man of Steel. That's one thing. But BVS was okay, not great. I think it got a lot of shit it didn't deserve. Army of the Dead, trash. Um, the original, the first Suicide Squad. I don't know if that was Zack Snyder. I know that was during his era. Maybe it was someone else. But if it's Zack, that's on you, Zack. Justice League. I did see the theatrical release, the theater one that lasted 2 hour ish, and I was like, you know what? I don't need to watch 4 hours of that. And I did hear good things about it. I just didn't watch it. So maybe there's one I missed that could actually work for me. But yeah, part 1 of Rebel Moon. It was bad. It was a chore to get through it. I think the second one, it wasn't that bad. Okay, I'm guilty. I did watch it not the way you should watch a movie. Let's now hear about the first movie opinion, the panel, and all the good stuff, the good jam. And then we'll talk about part 2. So here we are with Rebel Moon Part 2. It came out in 2024. So I have a lot of other movies to compare this shit to. I've seen 73, 74 movies so far this year that came out this year. Because if we put all of the movies from every year, I think I'm closer to 400 movies this year. Anyway, um, this thing is one of the worst. It's in my worst 10-ish. It's not the last place. No, that belongs to like Madame Web and Borderland. But this is on par with like The Crow. The bar is really low. I hated watching this thing. Um and it's 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 actually funny because I ended up being like, you know what? I remember the first one having terrible pacing, so I will actually watch that one at 1.5 speed. And I did. The movie was probably better that way. And I will admit, sometime when there was dialogue and I was like, maybe that scene should be slower, I would place it at normal speed. That's basically all I've seen that thing. And to be honest, no regrets. Because I think I would have given up on that movie if I watched it normal speed. This is how bad this movie is. Is it better or worse than the original? I will be honest, I can't remember the first one that much. That's why there's the review. I decided to clip it here, right in between the two intros and that thing, that review here. I can't remember if it's better or worse. All I know is it's Zack Snyder, he sucks. Um, a lot of talk. Let's review it. Um, my first issue among 10. In the first 5 minutes, every single thing is telling, not showing. The movie thinks you're stupid and said movie is bad at showing. Number two, pacing was bad. Watching the movie at 1.5 speed flows far better than normal speed. More pointless slow-mo as a third issue, proving once again at 1.5 speed, the movie works far better. Number four, another scene of farmers doing farming stuff with useless slow-mo. Number five, too many characters, and on top of that, everyone is forgettable. Number six, more bad slow-mo, running, I should say, ruining the pacing of some of the action pieces. Number seven, I felt nothing on what should have been a sad moment right after the good guy's death. It's due to bad characterization. And I know people died. I don't remember their goddamn names, and maybe that's the MTT issue, or maybe it's a script issue because sometimes in some movies I do end up remembering characters or being like, it's sad that one died, but here I didn't give a shit. Here it's like that movie is bad. I just wanted it to end. Number eight, another death that was meant to be sad. It wasn't. The death of the girl with the rubber arm. The reason being the same. The character was shit. Number nine, more shit slow mo. Number 10, another meaningless death as the characters were forgettable. So, like, three characters died. At least there were stakes, right? But your character sucked, so I didn't give a shit. I like when people, or I should say, I like when movies are emotional. I like when there's a core and art to something. When I watch a movie, I want to feel stuff. If I'm watching it bored, if I'm watching it hating this shit, I feel something, but that's not something you want me to feel when I'm watching a movie. Um, a little bit more, and I was cheering for the rebels to die. Um, Rebel Moon Part 2 is bad. Now I was overly negative. I will admit there were some redeemable qualities, if we can really say redeemable qualities. I don't know at that point anymore. Um, the newcomers being viewed as the Ope was kind of cool, but again, it's told through dialogue and maybe visual, but I didn't care enough to really end or to really see the symbolic behind the shots. Or maybe it's because there's none and there's no symbolic and Zack Snyder really suck at every aspect at making a movie. Um, let him direct maybe, but like editing, producing, no, it's not for him. Now there's a few likes, but there's no way in hell these likes save that thing. The action was cool, the set design, the costume were fine. The group training for war was cool. The flashback showing the guy losing his people was okay. The action was entertaining. The infiltration of the enemy ship was cool. The action in the ship was cool. So, you heard me right. Only the action was somewhat enjoyable. Turn off your brain, just watch the thing. Now, again, Rebel Moon Part 2 sucks. I hated the shit. And I don't have a lot more to say. I did vent. That movie is a 3.5 out of 10. Simple. In the bigger scheme of things, rewind. In the bigger scheme of things, I think Zack Snyder sucks. He is overrated. Uh, he's not worth your time. And yeah, if you do two movie and a half that are okay, but you got a huge library, ask question. Why is that guy still getting jobs? His name recognition, but like at some point you will realize that the people defending him, the people behind him are the minority. I don't know. That's all I feel about Zack Snyder. Rebel Moon sucks. And if you want more reviews like that, there's a full playlist. Easy to find. There's like now 75 videos in it as I am recording this. But more reviews are coming. More because I've seen a lot more. Like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.